Now it worked. Hey, Lace, great to have you. Today we're going to look at what we hate about GitHub Actions. And when we got together, we started this kind of offering conversation that we had on LinkedIn, where you said, I can't tell you what I love about CI/CD, but I can tell you what I hate about GitHub Actions. And I said, I need that person on my show. But you and I, we met before, Lace. So tell us a little bit, where do we know each other from, and how do we connect to each other?
Thanks, Johannes, for having me at your show. Well, we met last year at reInvent. It was my first time going to the West and to Vegas, and I got into the list of the hiking. Like, apparently, there is this tradition right now that is becoming a tradition at pre-reInvent, where you get the community builders to go to a hike on the canyons around Vegas. So I thought, why not do a 8 kilometers hike before a week that I will walk at least 8 kilometers a day? That would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's how we met first time in person.
Yeah.
It was great to have you part of that. But I think we already interacted before that on Slack and things like that.
Yeah,
Right?
we might share a thread or two. But that was an
Oh, a
adventure
bunch
for
of
me.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it was great fun. And we're going to do this again this year.
That's great.
As I told you, yeah, it's gonna be really fun again. I'm looking forward to that already. But today is not about hiking and not about stuff that we do for fun. Today is to moan a little bit about GitHub Actions and what we not like or not like about it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get us started
Yeah.
with an example of what I really hate about GitHub Actions, and this is the YAML notation. I don't really like that.
But
There's people that love YAML and just can't do anything in writing YAML, but I personally don't like it. So what's your take on YAML? Tell me.
yeah, I know there's a lot of people that hate it since before, like GitHub Actions and like Kubernetes and Helm charts. Like, I don't have much. I don't feel like. I don't know how I feel about YAML. Like, I think that JSON is worse. But for example, I think that depends.
That's
That
true.
depends where you use it. For example, for a GitHub or a GitLab, it's easy to use. But then if you like go to CloudFormation, your experience with YAML will be a little bit complicated, you know. So I think that's
True.
how you use it. Like, a lot of people doesn't like YAML. I don't know how I feel it. For me, it's just a tool that I use for getting things done. But like, I think that's how do you approach the use of it. Like, for CloudFormation, it will be a awful experience, at least for me. Like, I never used CloudFormation,
True.
but I saw the YAML files for it. But I think that depends how you use it. But like, if something better came up, people would use it. I don't know if like YAML just got the standard because like there's nothing better than it, or it's just because if I use it, everybody you use it, so that's the standard right now. So is there something better than
Yeah, I think
YAML? I don't know. So maybe that's why. But like, how do you apply that to your work for what you want to do? That's the point that may you that will make you like or not in the YAML conditions.
that is true. And for me, I don't like YAML because I kind of like more higher level programming languages, and then at the end generating YAML out of it. But I think YAML has a lot of good places as well because it's declarative and it gives you a lot of understandings on what to expect when you write the YAML code.
Yeah.
And I think for a CI/CD pipeline, it might make sense. And I believe that all of the bigger vendors, so GitLab, GitHub, they all use YAML notation these days, and also Code Catalyst supports YAML. So if you're talking CI/CD, I think there is no way around YAML these
Yeah.
days. But at least that's something I don't like about GitHub Actions, and there are potentially a few more. But I think before we go into some of the stuff that I had in mind, do we want to start talking a little bit about what your understanding of CI/CD is and why it is important for you as a cloud engineer?
Well, I got into automation really early in my career, and that made me want to automate almost everything that I can do it. If it's repetitive, if the action is repetitive, I can automate it. So I started doing pipelines back in 2017, and then my understanding what a CI/CD should be is like the CI needs to deliver to you everything that you don't need to waste your mind on it. So like if I'm reviewing a pull request, I don't want to like complain about you that your indentation is wrong, that is you're missing a comma or something that a link should fix it. So I will delegate to the CI everything that I don't want to waste my time on paying attention to it, because attention is a scarce resource. Like to have attention, to have focus, we need a really huge amount of energy. Our brain consumes most of the energy that we have for the day. So the CI needs to get rid of me, like to the CI needs to allow me to just focus on the review that is needed if the business rules of that pull request is meeting the rules. So I talk about a little bit about code governance. There is a term that I came with it, because there are a lot of good practices that we need to follow while developing some stuff, and like most of them can be a delegate to the CI/CD, because the stuff of the code that we do is uh, can be statically analyzed. So we can delegate that to the CI and
Okay.
focus on the real stuff. So the CI for me needs to deliver that. Like I just want to focus on the code. I don't want to focus on anything else that I can delegate to the CI. So that's I think that we lose
Okay.
some of these on using GitHub Actions.
Okay. That makes sense. And I think also it powers you to really focus on important things,
Yeah,
and that
like
stuff
that's the
is
purpose
the key
of
point of
AWS,
out. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly. Yeah.
you delegate everything to
Yeah.
AWS engineer, and then you just focus on delivering the value. Like
Yes, I think so too. So that's your perception on that, but that doesn't really bring us into why do you hate GitHub Actions. So do we want to do we want to talk about
yeah,
that or not? What
yeah,
do you
yeah, I
think?
think that I can.
Let's drive a little bit. Yeah.
Like when I start to build pipelines, I was using GitLab, and then when I got to GitHub Actions, I like I felt that I was in hell, you know. Like one time into 2021, I got into a company that they sent me a MacBook. I never use a Mac in my life. I only use Linux. And then like in a week, I send the MacBook back and ask me to send me a ThinkPad so I could go back to Linux. Why this analogy? I'm using this analogy. When I use Linux, I use KDE Plasma. I have everything by my hand, by the shortcuts, the screenshots, everything else. When I was on Mac, I could get near this experience that I have on Linux, and this is the feeling that I have with GitHub. Like a lot of stuff that GitLab, for example, gives me out of the box, I need to do by hand on GitHub. So one of the things that I really hate is like uh, I need to have a file for each environment that I want to deploy if that pipeline is automated. Like if I trigger that pipeline by my hand, I can input the environment so I can have one file for an environment, but I add the manual step to it. But if I want to deploy, if I want to have a pipeline for staging and production, I have to copy and paste the code just to change the environment, because the environment is passed to the jobs globally, not locally on the step. So that like I was why like what's the difficulty? So I have like the double files that I need to get the job done on my repository because they don't give me the possibility to pass the environment by the input of the job. So okay, I can save the space by using reusable workflows where you get all the jobs on the other file, then you import it. But then I need to have different files to pass the damn environment. So that's like, why? Like, why?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely, yeah, I get that. So that means you're concerned about missing input parameters and the possibility to have dynamic
Yeah.
workflows at the end. And that's something that GitLab offers today.
Yeah, like GitLab, if I recall correctly, like I can have these reusable jobs like GitHub has, but not like the full workflow. That depends on how you structure. But like you can
Okay.
pass the environment and his input to the step there to the job. Like I can I can have that in one file. I can have a job that
Okay.
uses a workflow for, and then I pass the input for production, and then I have another job that I use anchoring. That people also hate that about YAML, that is anchoring jobs, but like I can have that in one file and then pass the input of the environment on the job, like GitHub has. But like I can do that in the same file. GitHub does allow me
Hmm.
to have two environments declared on the same file because of the way that is structured.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Cool. So that's an important point. But I'm sure that that's not it. I'm sure you have a long list of things you want to get out of your head for GitHub Actions, right?
Yeah, I think that the first time that I used it, I really did arrange on my blog that I have like GitHub. I think that the title GitHub Actions is far from good, and comparing with GitLab. But I think that the next point would be that, for example, I said that CI should not put on me effort that I don't need to do it. So, for example, if I have a testing pipeline on GitLab, I could just export a unit file and it would render for me automatically on the merge request. I don't have
Hmm.
that out of the box on GitHub Actions. For me to have that, I need to use third party actions. So third party actions is
Hmm.
something for me on GitHub.
But third party actions, sorry, Lace, they are really powerful. There's like 20,000 public actions that I can just use. Then it gives me all flexibility. And this is like, it's a really powerful thing, isn't it?
No, I don't think so because
No. Why
because
not?
those actions from third parties, they are not security verified. So you might get an action to use
Okay.
that will leak your credentials if you don't look at the source code. And we know that most of the developers just want to get the job done, and they use any action that will appear on Google
Mm.
first. And since those actions are not audited by Microsoft, by GitHub, you might leak your credentials, any credentials that you have on your
Hmm.
CI, because they are not verified. Okay, that you can add a level of trustfulness because of the amount of the times that action is used, so it gets a level of authority. For
Hmm.
example, like Terraform modules from Anton, that like we know that they are good modules to use because they have some authority because of the number of the installations that you have. But most of the GitHub Actions doesn't have that, and you don't have a common platform. So, for example, like I said, I can just export a Unity file on GitLab, and I'll have rendering the test results for me. On GitHub, I don't have a pattern for that. I don't have anything out of the box for that. So I need to use third party actions. And then, for example, I have a Python action that does that for me. I have a Node action that does that for me. And I have a Go action that does that for me. But they don't have the same layout. So that if you work in a team that you
Hmm.
have programs in different languages, you need to like spend energy to understand the different graphs that the each action gives to you on commenting on your pull request. So GitLab gives to me a lot of things out of the box that I need to do by hand on GitHub using third-party actions that doesn't necessarily have a pattern of how they expose things. And even sometimes they don't work correctly. So I got like there's an action that we are using at my job that doesn't get any update in the last 4 years. So how many security threats I have with that?
Yeah.
Then so I
Yeah.
changed to another one that get more updates. But like you don't have any kind of uh, evaluation on those actions. So you have all this marketplace, but you don't know when a malicious actor would be on those actions and leak credentials that is
Yeah.
available on your CI. Okay, then you can use GitHub runners from Microsoft that you like limit the action range to not do anything bad. But like eventually you will use your own runners because it's expensive to use the GitHub runners. So those runners will be on
Yeah.
your infrastructure that has access to everything because you need to deploy stuff for you. So that's a huge point for me.
But yeah, I agree. So now let's unpack that a little bit. So the GitHub Actions runners, you can have them on code build these days. There is an integration that makes things a little bit easier. Now, a question on the third-party actions. I know that kind of everyone can build third-party actions, but if you use GitHub Enterprise, I think that there is a possibility to choose what kind of GitHub Actions you are allowed to use or not.
Yeah,
So I think you can differentiate between good and bad developers, kind of.
yeah, I don't know because I don't know how to
Okay.
manage a GitHub account. But like
Okay.
what you can do like to minimize the consequences. Your team, your foundation platform, your security team, whatever, will create reusable workflows that will attend the needs of your squads, your teams anyway. And then on building those workflows, you can evaluate the source code of that and see if there is any security threat. But then
But
there is a lot of work.
that still doesn't protect you from
Yeah,
yeah, and it doesn't protect you from someone changing the workflow after you
yeah,
started to use it, right? So as after changing the action after you started to use it.
yeah. Okay, then you can use like the protection could be using tags, so you don't like use the main of it. You use the latest tag of it. But then there is this
Okay.
that you need to keep up to security updates. The source code of the action needs to be safe. So there is a lot of things that is building up on that doesn't give me the sense of safety at all.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Okay, that makes sense, and I think that's a very important point, especially if you use this all as part of your development lifecycle, where you then actually point stuff directly to production. So, Lace, what would be your take on which GitHub actions can you trust and which ones you can? Do you have a best practice that you could share with our
Yeah,
audience?
there is the official GitHub actions like the checkout that you always need to do. So the ones made from GitHub team, they are trustful. There is some verified companies, so there is actions from AWS, for example, that you can use. So I do a hand of those two. But then there's a lot of things that I rather build by myself than use a third party action that does that for me. So I just build a reusable workflow so I
Okay.
don't need to be copying and pasting that all the time. But like there are some things that I like to use by myself. So like there is actions, for example,
Okay.
there are third party actions that can deploy stuff for your cloud front and then validate the state and everything else. I rather do that by using AWS CLI than opening myself to a possibility of leaking of my AWS credentials. Okay, that also if you're using AWS actions on GitHub, you should be using IAM authentication. I am assume whole authentication without putting your damn AWS secrets on the environment. Like we are past that
Yep.
right now. So like you have a small range of opening if someone tries to use that credential because it will expire in 1 hour. And also use like if you are deploying to AWS, you should be using IAM roles to limit the things that a role can do. But then there are some verified actions, but I don't think that they attend all the needs that developers have, like running tests, having the reports.
Okay.
And I think that Microsoft should work on that, like to having more verified sources, because I know that they having issues right now with VS Code extensions, that some of them are even kind of verified, but they are malicious actors. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah, like GitHub Actions has become like an NPM type of thing there where you can publish anything without being verified, and then from time to time you have some security issue that is really big. So I don't know when this will
Yeah.
happen with
Makes
GitHub,
sense.
but I think that this might happen in time soon with people like not
Yeah.
reading the source code of things that they use.
And I think that's then also kind of a supply chain attack in the similar space to like changing open source libraries or stuff like that. Changing GitHub actions that are used in enterprise world can also become very, very dangerous, I would say. That's number two. Did you bring more?
uh no, I think that those are my both main complaints. Like I would like to have more. I would there's one more. uh I think that the way the GitHub Access is structured does not just does not help at all. Like um there's some this is one thing that I solve with a third party action. But like there's some jobs like I want to deploy a new Docker image to my infrastructure, but like we are on freezing. So to deploy that, I need to have a manual approval of someone with higher authority to allow me to do that. On GitHub, I also can only have a full job manual, so I need to have a approval on a full workflow. So I have a pipeline deployment for production. I can't lock that to require approval on a couple of people. So I need to lock the full pipeline. So if, for example, my Docker image takes like 20 minutes to build, I will only have that build after the higher authority approves for me. On GitLab, yeah,
Yeah,
on
true.
GitLab I don't have that. I can have manual interventions on steps. So I think that the bigger difference here is that like GitHub forces you to have everything globally, when GitLab, for example, doesn't. So what I did, for example, for a pipeline was that I have the build process, and then to have the approval for the deployment, I have an action that creates an issue on my repository and tags the people that needs to get the approval, that needs to comment like looks good to me, yes, approve anything, and then that will have a callback to the pipeline, that like the pipeline is running, so you are spending machines on
Yeah.
that, and then there is a timeout of that. Like I think that the runner can only run for an hour or two in idle, I don't know, but there is a
Okay.
timeout of that. And then the machine keeps running waiting for the callback of the issue, so then they can follow deployment if you have the approval. And that's just insane. like like there is
Yeah,
no
that
way
is
for me
true.
to do that directly on, like without locking the GitHub, without locking everything. Like it forces you on that. Like there's it just I don't know. Like for there's another like this.
It should
Yeah,
be,
go.
yeah. It should
It
be
should be
simpler, right?
simpler.
It should be
Yeah.
simpler for yeah. Yeah.
So like
And there's another one
yeah,
you just
yeah.
said. Go ahead.
Like
Sorry.
I'd like I no I like to add the GitHub short chat on my Docker images. Like if I need to redeploy some stuff, I have the SHA so I can make the name of the image unique, so I have immutable ECR repositories. Like GitLab has an environment variable that gives me that. On GitHub, I need to use shell stuff so I can like slice the SHA of it, so I can have the short SHA. Like and then there is a requirement
Mm.
of the short SHA on the GitHub discussions, but no one touched it for a while. So there's all these things that should be out of the box for me, because if I'm acting like an operation, I don't want to think. I want to deploy and forget. So every time that I need to do something
Yeah.
new on GitHub Actions, I get angry. Like this should be easier. Like the develop life, the develop experience should be getting easier. And every time that I go into the operations on the infrastructure side, I just see that complicating, you know.
Looks like we got a little bit of your Brazilian temperature here, a little bit higher when talking about this. Um, let's okay. I cannot agree more to that. I think that CI/CD in general in industry has not found a good representation of human behaviors, and I think that there is no perfect tool on the market, which is essentially why we have that many
Yeah.
different options. And I think that's what we see. But unfortunately, and you and I, we might not love that, right? GitHub Actions has become the de facto standard for a lot of open source projects and also for a lot of enterprises that use GitHub Actions as well. Do you see that changing or not?
I don't think so. I would like to have the improvements on GitHub overall, but there's a lot of things that like GitLab has done right and GitHub doesn't copy. Like I don't know if you know about this. Like WhatsApp copy a lot of features from Telegram. Like people on WhatsApp receiving new features, and I say to them like, I have this on Telegram by 2 years now. So I think that Microsoft should start to copy GitLab features. And I think one that I would like to get GitHub to have, but it is not particular to GitHub Actions, is the possibility to group the repositories in subgroups. So like I can get all my repositories on the MRT name on GitLab, but I don't have that on GitHub. So that would be way more easier for management a huge account that has like more than 800 repositories like mine has. So I
Okay.
think that they should start to copy some features from GitLab so they could allow us to have more easier on adoption, because like I don't see my company moving to GitLab, you know. So and this would be a huge move, you know. Like I don't see my company doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah, of
So
course.
when you start on a on an application like that, if you start on GitHub, if you start on GitLab, moving away from that is complicated. It's
Yeah, it's
difficult.
difficult. Yeah.
So I don't see that changing, but I really hope that like Microsoft does better for us, because like I sometimes I feel like sick using it, and
Yeah, but yeah,
that's when I start to hate, and I get really angry, because as a person that likes to automate everything, I want things to be easier. I want to deploy and forget, and I need to worry about all a lot of stuff that I would need to worry, and I worry that because I have anxiety disorder, so a lot of people wouldn't mind with that. So that's when the problems can come, like I said before, like security issues that we can have.
yeah.
It's just like
Let's hope.
yeah, let's hope that get better.
Go ahead.
That gets better. But I think
Yeah, let's hope that someone from Microsoft sees this, right, and kind of takes this as an input into how to get this as product roadmap suggestions as well. Did you know that in officially over 5,800 people work at GitHub?
wow,
Guess how many we have in working in GitLab?
I don't know. I think like GitLab is open source, so you have a lot of community going back behind that.
Yeah, okay, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm talking about the people that are paid by
I don't
GitLab.
know.
1,800. So GitHub is way bigger
Yeah.
than GitLab, right? And still, you're kind of talking about GitLab doing things better and easier for developers in a lot of perspective. And I think that's something that GitHub also can take into account in building their own
Yeah,
roadmap, right?
more staff is just doesn't like connects directly to more quality. I think that my GitHub might have changed a lot because of when Microsoft bought them. I saw a talk on YouTube of one of the founders of GitHub that he left after Microsoft bought, and then I don't recall what he said. I think that it was you don't know nothing about Git. I think that it is his talk, but I knew a lot of stuff that he said that,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that I'm an advanced user of Git. But I think that the feeling is that GitHub changed a lot, and they might not know where they want to go, you know. And maybe GitHub extend the way that it is if we go by the path that like we needed something to get done fast, and now there is no rollback. Like there was no CI
Yeah.
on GitHub for a while, and GitLab came first, I think, and
Yep.
then now the way that they might have developed stuff does not allow for the flexibility that we require. And I think that GitLab may turn out the way that it is because it's open source and it's back from the community, so you don't only have the production team telling you what to do. Like it's from the community, and then you can
Yeah.
contribute. I remember that I contributed with a update on a GitLab image that I think that it uses. I think that the image was the one that does the code quality reports, and then I got that the merge request was merged, and then after a while I got a gift from them. Like they send me a mail like it's your first
Cool.
time contribution. We want to send you a gift,
Cool.
so I got a gift from them, and that was really was awesome back in the day. So there's a lot of things that is built in out of the box on GitLab that's for me gives the advantage on top of GitHub. There are a lot of things that you just like go to the CI and you click and you enable like SAST, DOS, code quality, and a lot of stuff. You just check the box and the pipeline will run for that every time that you trigger. That on GitHub I need to do that manually. So there's a lot of room to improvement, but I don't know how Microsoft is seeing that. Like because we can get used to bad stuff really easily, you know. You just see that has one task that you need to cross from your to-do list, and you just do it and don't complain about it. So like if you have more people like us complaining about it on GitHub, something might change, but I don't know. I would hope so, but then I can like my boss said to me like this the expectation is the mother of frustration, so I won't
Mm-hmm.
get my hopes
True.
up.
Well, let's see. So, as we're approaching the end of our conversation, what would make a real difference for you in CI/CD automation? What would you really want to get to make your day-to-day life easier if you work on CI/CD or automation things? Something that comes to your mind
I would go
spontaneously?
back to GitLab. Yeah, but that's
Okay,
not my
but there would be
choice. uh,
something that GitLab allows you that GitLab doesn't have that you would still want to have over there, right? So make your mind completely free. If you have one choice in CI/CD automation, what would it be
that's,
that any vendor could implement for you?
that's a good question. know, because I really build everything by myself, so I don't feel
Okay,
like I don't know. I don't think that I have an answer for that. I never thought about it, so I probably
that's
think
okay.
about it the
That's
rest of
okay.
my day. And for you, what would
That's
be?
good. For me, I think I would want to remove the need to decide on a certain CI/CD vendor, while at the same time keep all of the possible integrations that I have.
Yeah.
So at the moment, you need to choose. You still need to choose for a CI/CD framework, either GitLab, Jenkins, GitHub, Code Catalyst, whatever you use. But you need to choose for that. You need to be aware of how that system works. And I think, in the same way, serverless has become kind of a de facto known term that everyone doesn't want to talk about anymore because everyone knows it and it's boring. I would love the concept of CI/CD being so core to what we do on a regular basis, then it just becomes unrelated on how you implement it, because it would be way easier to do that. That would be my
That's a good
choice.
choice. I think that if you have a set of
I don't know if I'm ever
standards,
gonna get
because
that.
for example, on the cloud, things mostly maybe related to Kubernetes and everything else, you have the CNCF setting the patterns. So we don't have that for CI/CD. So if we have some patterns of
That
it
is true.
that most of it should implement it, and then they can have your each of them its particularities, and then it would be something. But that's the issue too. Like you get used to standards, like I had with GitLab. When I go to GitHub, those standards doesn't exist anymore. So maybe if you have some standards, some definitions of it, how should that be built, that would work. Because like there is not only CI/CD on GitLab and GitHub, because we are talking about applications that are repositories, but like we have the CI/CD of Beanstalk, Apple Runner, Heroku, and Vercel. So every each of these application has some of CI/CD, and each of them looks differently. So that adds a burden to the developer that doesn't know any of it. So if you have some standards, I think that would be a good start.
Yay!
Yeah,
Great, Lace.
found my
Thank you
answer.
so much.
Thank you, Johannes, for having me. This
Yeah,
was a
it's
great
good.
time.
It's good. Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and your feedback on CI/CD tools. And yeah, before we depart for today's call, where can people find more about you and get to know you a little bit better, or actually engage with you if they have follow-up
Well, they can
questions?
find me on
What do you
LinkedIn.
use?
Is Leis Rodriguez 147, my nickname in there. And they can also find myself
Okay.
my blog that is lays147.substack.com. So they can subscribe to my
Okay.
newsletter that come from time to time. And yeah, they can reach me out on LinkedIn if they have any follow-up questions.
Cool. And if you are listening to this, get inspired to tell me more about what you hate about GitHub Actions, about GitLab CI/CD, or about any other CI/CD tool, please feel free to reach out to me as well. And I'm going to get you together with Lace on the show, and then I can see both of you getting energetic about what you don't like about a certain
Yeah.
CI/CD tool. Thank you so much for being with me, and yeah, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye bye.